opening of the new inland port. It took true leadership, it took true commitment to make that inland port a reality in working with people in Greer and throughout the state of South Carolina. It's that accomplishment, along with so many others, such as successful funding for the harbor deepening project, the investment in new equipment, it's actually state-of-the-art equipment at every port terminal in South Carolina, and including a new terminal that's being developed in North Charleston. This takes excellent management skills and courage. In introducing Jim Newsom to you, I present to you a man who is that kind of leader with strong values and belief in who we are as a community in Greer and who we are as a state in South Carolina. Please welcome my good friend who is a fan of the color orange like me, even though it's a little faded shade in a checkerboard end zone in Knoxville, Tennessee, but Jim Newsom, the President and CEO of the Ports Authority.
Thanks, Max, for that great introduction, and thanks to all of you for having me here tonight. And I would also like to really express my appreciation and sympathy to Buddy Richardson's family for that wonderful tribute. I think it's very inspiring and certainly moving to watch. So I was never supposed to work in South Carolina. I can just tell you that as a fact. I'm from Savannah, Georgia. My dad was from the port there. The chances of me running the South Carolina Ports Authority were about 0%. But you never say always, and you never say never. And you know, I was fortunate enough to get the job 5 years ago. I'm very grateful for Max's remarks, and I think the most important thing that he said is that we have a very good team in the port. It's a team sport. We work together every day, and I think we've accomplished a lot, but we still have a lot to do. And I was sitting with my wife over the holidays, and you know, I was talking to her about my career and being in container shipping, and I said, you know, honey, I said, I bet in your wildest dreams you never thought that, you know, we would have all the opportunities that we have had. And she looked at me in only the sobering way that a wife can look at a husband. She said, honey, you were never in my wildest dreams. So that was the reality check that you need in the holidays, right? But I have to start by saying I'm very grateful to this community. It's always a pleasure to be here. I think the upstate is the business hub of South Carolina. The people here understand business, and we've got this done because of the commitment of the people in this area, basically. So I'll always be eternally grateful for what the upstate meant to us in this project and what the upstate means to the port overall. So I really have two parts to this presentation. One is to tell you about the port generally, and then one is to focus more specifically on what we have accomplished together in Greer. So I've got some slides. I'm not sure you'll see everything on it. I won't cover every point on the slides, but I hope that you'll find it interesting. So the one key metric in a fixed cost business like the port is that you have to grow. And fortunately, we have been growing rather rapidly in the port. We are, first of all, in the best market in the country to be a port. The southeastern U.S. is the best place to be a port. Very simply for two reasons. Because population is growing in the southeast. That's what drives imports. And we're manufacturing in the southeast in big amounts, basically. There's a lot of manufacturing investment, BMW, Michelin, the other companies in this area. So we're in a very good port market. We grew 8% in fiscal 14 versus fiscal 13, and we've grown 15% in our first half fiscal year 15 versus fiscal 14. So that's well above the U.S. port market. And what I say to our team is it's really a good thing that we're doing that, but to be very clear, we have to do this for a number of years to come to be successful. So we've made a good start in our growth plan, but we have a long way to go. So the second thing is really a calendar year. We do measure normally in fiscal year, but this is a calendar year chart back to 2000. And something that we're very proud of, that in calendar 2014, we exceeded 1 million pier containers. For the first time in a long time. We had a record year in 2005, just over 1.1 million containers. We lost a lot of volume down to 2009, under 700,000 beer containers. So we're growing again. We're back over 1 million containers. And this was one of my initial goals when I joined the port, to get back over 1 million containers and really to reestablish ourselves as one of the premier ports in this country. Because I think you will all agree with me, a state with a great port in an era of global sourcing and global manufacturing has a chance to be really successful. So it is important that we grow. And just to continue that theme for a second, we basically have grown in the last 5 years twice the U.S. port market. So we grew 52%, the U.S. port market grew about 25%. So the way we really look at our growth is that we need to grow twice the U.S. port market. The U.S. port market grows 3%, we need to grow 6%. If we're not doing that, we're not being successful. So growth is very critical. What drives the port today is the deployment of big ships. And I'm from the ocean container shipping industry, so I never worked in a port before I took this job. And I have to tell you that I never thought that we would see the size of ships that we're seeing today, and no one really did. This was an unforeseen trend that's happening very quickly. And you can look at it sort of in trade segments. So the biggest east-west trade in the world for containers is the Asia-Europe trade. And today, the standard of ship size for that trade is over 18,000 20-foot equivalents, 18 to 20,000 20-foot equivalents. To give you some perspective, we see really big ships in our harbor today. The biggest ship that we've ever seen in our harbor is 9,500 TEUs today. So you're seeing ships today that are twice the size that we see today in our harbor. So that's the standard in the Asia-Europe trade. And what that causes to happen is smaller ships, which are still very big ships from a traditional perspective, will come to the United States. So we're going to see is the workhorse size of ship in the East Coast U.S. trade to Asia and Europe between 8 and 13,000 TEU ships. So these ships are massive. They require a tremendous investment in port facilities. And as Max mentioned, they require deepening our harbor, and we'll talk a bit about that. So this trend is unprecedented. The first 8,000 TEU ship was probably conceived and built in the year 1998 or so. And now by the time the Panama Canal is widened in 2016, there'll be more ship capacity in the world, container ship capacity, that's too big to go through the Panama Canal than otherwise, basically. So about 60% of the world ship capacity would be too big to go through the Panama Canal. So unprecedented trend. And we illustrate that maybe a little more pertinently for you with this slide. And so what you'll see, the little speck, if you can see it, that's a BMW X5, which is near and dear to our heart because BMW exports about 800 of those a day through our ports, a very important piece of our business. And you see the Boeing 787 plane there. If you've been to Charleston, you know the aircraft carrier Yorktown. That's pretty big in itself. Then you see a 9,000 TEU ship there, which is the size of ship that is the biggest ship that we handle today. And then we're preparing and investing to handle 14,000 TEU ships. That's a massive ship. It's just over 1,200 feet long. It's 167 feet wide. It tests every dimension of a port. Depth, air draft, overreach of cranes, things of that nature. And just kind of one of those needless facts that would never happen. If this ship was full of Adidas shoes, there would be 70 million shoes in that ship. I don't imagine that will ever happen, but anyway, it's an interesting fact. So to accommodate these ships, we have to deepen our harbor. And I'm proud of many things that we've done in our port, but the thing that I'm perhaps as proud of, besides the inland port, the thing that I'm very proud of is our deepening project. Because we are the first harbor to actually do a deepening project fast. And you may say, well, what's fast in the world of harbor deepening projects? Well, fast is doing a study in 4 years. So I'm not kidding you. I mean, there are other studies that it has taken 20 years to do. If you look in the Port of Savannah, it's taken 20 years to deepen harbor. So we will complete our study in 4 years. It's a very good study. The catalyst of that study, and I'm glad to see our legislators here tonight, the catalyst for that study and for the progress of that study was the fact that our state legislature took the proactive stance of putting $300 million aside in the bank account in 2012 so we could tell the Army Corps of Engineers that we would fund this project, that it was going to happen without any doubt. So that was a critical step. So our study will be, and you may have read a couple of weeks ago that we did conclude a very significant deal with a major conservation interest in the state, which means that they will support this project. And what it means is the study will be done, and we'll have the chief's report concluding the study by September 2015, and we will have the deepest harbor on the U.S. East Coast by the end of 2019. And that's a major accomplishment for us because we're going to add 7 feet to the depth of our harbor. And 7 feet of draft on a post-Panamax ship is equivalent to the ability to load between 1,000 and 1,200 additional loaded containers. So I can't really overemphasize the importance of this deepening project. It's critical for the region, and it's very critical for our state. Because we are an exporting region. So what's the thing that makes me lay awake at night? Well, my wife will tell you not much, but if anything makes me lay awake at night, it's this slide here. So to keep up with the big ship development, to support the growth of trade, import and export wise, to handle the new dimensions of ships, we have to invest a lot of money. And I think it's very important to note that the port has its own investment responsibility. We have our own bond rating with Moody's and Standard & Poor's. We have to invest in our own assets. We have to make profit to do that or be able to borrow, or we cannot invest. But we have a very good partner in the state. So the way it works, the port builds the inside defense infrastructure, new terminals, cranes, equipment, things of that nature. The state helps us on outside defense infrastructure, harbor deepening, access road to the new terminal at the former Navy base, dual-served intermodal container transfer facility, which the Commerce Department is working on. So between the two of us, we're investing $2 billion in the next 10 years. That is an outsized investment for a port our size. But it is an investment we have to make to be a player in the U.S. and global container business. And I think it's an investment that, which will be very successful when it's realized. You see in this chart the amount of money that we invested in the inland port. It was $50 million. And we'll talk in a little detail about that here shortly. So this is our biggest challenge, is realizing our capital plan in a timely fashion. And really what we say is that by the end of this decade, our harbor needs to be deepened, and the first phase of the new Navy base terminal needs to be in operation for us to be successful. So we don't have a lot of margin for error in doing this. We have really to meet our growth targets, our profitability targets, to make this a reality. So something that I'm very proud of, that we all should be very proud of, and I was actually quoted, we had our board meeting yesterday, and I was quoted in the Post and Courier, and I said something I didn't think would get a lot of attention, but got a lot of attention. It was on the banner. And what I said was that the top 10 container ports in the U.S., 7 of them worked terribly, and 3 of them worked reasonably well. Well, the good news is that we're the one that works the best today in the United States. Something we should be very proud of. We're the most cost-effective. We have the most reliable ability to handle ships in and out fast. Better than any port in North America. And in a time when you all read the newspaper, I mean, you see a lot of discussion about economic growth being impacted by the slowdown in the West Coast ports and things of that nature. So the Southeast ports work reasonably well today, and we work the best. And again, it's something because we have good equipment, but you all know being in business is not about equipment. Business is about people. Business is about the commitment and dedication of people. And we happen to have really good people in the maritime community in Charleston that make this a reality. So what does that look like? What do you mean that you're productive and fast? Well, the sort of the gold standard for a port like ours is to be able to handle a ship with 2,000 container moves on and off the ship in less than 24 hours pilot to pilot. So from the time the pilot boards the ship, we work the ship at the dock, we handle 2,000 container moves. That takes 5 cranes to do it. Then they drop the pilot off. That ship should be in and out in less than 24 hours. That's exceptional. Most ports cannot do that. So we do that because we have the most productivity in U.S. ports today. So it's something that we have to keep in place. And again, why does it work? You know, it's a funny story because when you tell people, well, the most productive ports in the United States are public sector operating groups, they look at you like you're crazy because how could the public sector do anything efficiently, basically, right? You know, but the reality of life is the ports that are challenged today are the landlord ports that have franchise operations. They have a high human content and things of that nature, and it makes them less efficient. So we're in a good situation. We need to keep this situation in place to assure our success. Just another commentary on our investments. So we have today a $900 million balance sheet. By the time we finish investing, we will have close to a $2 billion balance sheet, $1.8 billion balance sheet. We don't earn enough money today to support that. So one of the other initiatives that we have is getting our rates up. And we're doing that in one tranche now here in 2015. We've renegotiated our contracts with some revenue improvements, and we'll do it again in 2017. Why 2017? Because that's when the Panama Canal is widening. That's when the Bayonne Bridge is being raised in New Jersey. That's when we think the big ships will need to come to Charleston in order to need our services. So we feel confident about being able to raise our rates. We are very much dependent on truckers. And I don't know if there are any truckers in the room here, but every container that moves is touched somehow by a truck. A container can come by rail to Greer, it still has to get on a truck to get to BMW or get somewhere else. The folks that truck containers are mainly entrepreneurs. A lot of people don't realize that. They own a truck. They put a placard on the side in the morning to come to work. The owners share the revenue. If they don't get turned around quickly in a port, there's a chance they don't eat that night, or they don't have the proper income to support their families. So we're very committed in our port. It's something I'm very proud of to make sure, and it's the same in the inland port here, to make sure that trucks get in and out very fast. What does that mean? A truck should spend no more than an hour on our port terminal. There are many parts of the country today that spend 4, 6, 8 hours on ports and congestion. It doesn't happen with us. And to make sure that we're even better at that, we actually are extending our gate hours to support our growth. So our terminals run from 6 in the morning to 6 at night for trucks. And we're starting to have a Saturday gate on February 7th from 8 to 5 in Charleston. The inland port in Greer actually runs 24 hours a day, again, to support BMW's operation. So we want to be friendly to the trucking community and to make them successful. Because if we don't, in a high employment environment like we exist today, they can sell their truck and go build a house or do something else. We've got to make sure that they make a good income. And now the South Carolina Inland Port, something that I am extremely proud of. And I would love to sit here and tell you that the South Carolina Inland Port was a brilliant example of strategic thinking and thought, and conceptual thought and things of that nature. But I'd kind of be pulling your leg. The reality of life is we were very fortunate. We had a great customer. We had a base cargo of BMW. To be very clear, the inland port would have never happened without the base cargo of BMW. It's not a build it and they will come strategy. There are a lot of counties in this state, let me tell you, they call me every day, we want an inland port and wherever. And what I basically say is show me a BMW and you'll have an inland port. It's not a smart aleck remark, it's a fact. You're going to have a base cargo to invest this type of money. So we obviously had to have a base cargo like BMW. I got a phone call on the 12th of January, 16th of January in 2012 from the Norfolk Southern Railroad. They said, we would like to work with you to get the BMW traffic off of trucks and onto our train system. We said, absolutely. We'd owned some land adjacent to the Greenville-Spartanburg Airport for 30 years. Why was that? Why did we buy that land? Because the Port of Virginia had built an inland port in Front Royal, Virginia in 1983. So we had really land for 30 years, pretty much lying fallow here, thinking we would do something with it one day. So we saw a real opportunity with that initiative from Norfolk Southern to build the inland port and bridge. So we ran with it, and our board supported us. And as I said to you, we spent $50 million rather quickly. And so an idea conceived in January of 2012 was a reality at the end of October 2013. Exceptionally fast. Why is it not dual rail service? People will ask that question. The very simple reason was that you needed an overnight train service to mimic the efficiency of truck to make an inland port work. And the Norfolk Southern, given the dynamics of their rail route, were the only ones that could make that happen. So that was a critical step. We had a lot of cooperation from Dave Edwards and his team in the Green Spark area. We could never, ever, ever have made it happen without them. We needed some land. We needed their cooperation. They moved heaven and earth to help us, and I'm eternally grateful for that, Dave. I know Dave thought we had lost our minds. We called him out of meetings. He was in Colorado. He was pretty fed up with us, I think, at a certain point, but he rolled with us, and we got this exciting thing, done together. We also had a good partner in Centerpoint Properties and Ragnar Benson, their engineering contractor. We needed Centerpoint Properties, as you may or may not know, built the biggest inland port in the world in a place called Joliet, Illinois. Basically, that handles over 2 million containers a year, by the way. It's like the third or fourth biggest port in the country. So we needed their expertise, and so we had them on board as well. We also needed the city of Greer, and I cannot thank the city council of Greer and all the elected officials in this area, and the permitting agencies, et cetera. Mayor Danner, I don't know where Mayor Danner is, right there. Mayor Danner has been a wonderful partner with us in this project, and I can tell you that it's a great success today, and it's going to be even more successful in the future. So it is, as I said, a team sport, and we work together. And this is a picture of it. You've seen it from the ground, but this is what it looks like from the air. So basically, and we also, interesting enough, we had a naming contest for these RTGs, these lift machines, and we had some of the elementary schools compete. We got some great names out of that, and it was an exciting thing to do. So what sets this port apart, I think it's very innovative. We can ground containers. It has overnight train service. It's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it is the convergence of 4 modes of transportation. So at this inland port, you have water service, you have rail service, you have truck service, and you have a great airport, basically, which is cargo served. So that's fantastic. I have a lot of fun with talking to people about ports that don't know a lot about